Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the last day of our week of celebrating and learning about newly revised standards for professional learning. My name is Elizabeth Foster. I'm the Vice President of Research and Standards, and it is my pleasure to host today's conversation. Our goal for the next hour is to delve into the research that informed the revision of standards for professional learning. We'll share some exciting new research about the impact of professional learning aligned to standards, and you'll be able to hear from a great panel of experts. Today, we have with us a wonderful panel, including Rachel Garrett from the American Institutes for Research, Brian Goodwin from McCrell International, and Sho Cravens from Vanderbilt. Rachel has led research about the standards, including a literature review and meta-analysis, which she'll talk about today. Brian and Sho, both expert researchers, are members of our Standards Advisory Council and have been engaged in the revision process with us for the past 2 years. So we'll start with a short overview of the standards, and then we'll hear from the panel and have a chance to engage in a Q&A with them. So if you haven't been here all week, I'll give you a little overview of what the week has entailed. This week has been a long time coming. At moments, it felt like it would never be here, but here we are, the last day of a whole week of celebration. We've had a webinar each afternoon focused on different aspects and topics related to the standards. And we've had the most amazing lineup of speakers all week, from state policymakers to middle school principals, to literacy coaches, to longtime learning forward leaders and affiliate leaders. If you haven't been with us, I encourage you to go back to our website where all of the webinars are recorded. I hope you can see this slide, even though the previous days are shaded out, but I'll give you a quick little overview. On Monday and Tuesday, staff and Standards Advisory Council members discussed the essential topics in the standards, the history of the standards, and what is new in this latest version. On Wednesday, we focused on a congressional briefing to look at the policy implications of standards and to make the case for sustained investments in high-quality, standards-aligned professional learning. On Thursday, representatives, educators in different roles talked about how they utilize and collaborate around the standards. And again, as I mentioned, each webinar is now found on our website, standards.learningforward.org. Thanks to Anthony Armstrong on our staff and the communications team, we have a great overview video about the standards. So I'd like to start with that and then highlight just a few things before we turn to the panel.
When it comes to creating the best possible schooling experiences for our students, we know that professional learning for educators is an essential lever, empowering all educators so that every student benefits. With that singular purpose in mind, Learning Forward developed the Standards for Professional Learning so that educators around the world have the latest knowledge and insights for designing, implementing, and sustaining high-quality professional learning. The standards generate a learning system in which high-quality professional learning leads to positive changes in educator knowledge, skills, and dispositions, which lead to improvements in educator practice, which in turn lead to accelerated student results. The standards are organized into a framework with 3 parts: content, processes, and conditions for professional learning. Standards within the rigorous content for each learner frame describe the essential content of adult learning that leads to improved student outcomes. Standards within the transformational processes frame describe process elements of learning, explaining how educators learn in ways that sustain significant changes in their knowledge, skills, practices, and mindsets. Standards within the conditions for success frame describe aspects of the context, structures, and cultures that undergird high-quality professional learning. equity of opportunity, and access to powerful learning for each educator and student is a driving force throughout the standards. When implemented, these standards lead to high-quality leading, teaching, and continuous improvement in schools. The kind of support educators experience in continuous learning environments contributes to greater educator satisfaction, retention, and efficacy. Since developing the first set of standards in 1994, Learning Forward has led their evolution with the help of hundreds of educators, leading organizations, foundations, and thought leaders in the education field. This ensures that the standards for professional learning will continue to meet the needs of students and educators for generations to come, preparing them to respond to the demands of an ever-changing world. Educators who work in environments driven by comprehensive professional learning systems have both the privilege and responsibility of leading the learning profession. With high-quality learning at the heart of schools, every student experiences the best possible teaching and support for their continued success. Visit Learning Forward to learn more about how to bring the standards for professional learning to your school or system.
Great. That video is very thorough and very dense. There's a lot packed in there, so I've watched it myself about 20 times. But before we get to the panel, I'd like to just highlight a few points that were mentioned in the video. So on this slide, you can see our new standards graphic, which highlights how the standards are all connected and work together in a system. In order for the standards to have their full intended impact, they must all be understood and used together. And again, as this graphic shows, there's multiple entry points into the standards. So while a team of educators working with a new curriculum might start with the curriculum assessment and instruction standard, and a district leader interested in sustaining a successful professional learning initiative might start with the implementation standard, as they get deeper into their work and bring more colleagues and teams together, they will need to engage with the full set of standards in order to see real sustained systemic improvement. People come together from across roles and different problems of practice through the standards. Then on the next slide, you can see the video provided a nice overview of the standards, including the 3 frames and a little peek at each standard. But to learn more, please visit our website where you can read all 11 standards, explore their main constructs and concepts, and see the selected resources at the end of each standard. You can also see in each standard how that particular standard links to other standards in the whole framework. On the next 2 slides, you can see the foundations for the standards. I won't read them because they are on our website, but I will just leave them up for a minute so you can take a look. And on the second slide, you can see at the bottom, the foundation we'll focus on today. Research informs revised standards for professional learning. And I'll give you a few examples of that, and then our panel will share more examples and some sense for what they're excited about in terms of how the standards reflect new research. So as I said, the standards are organized into 3 frames: rigorous content for each learner, transformational processes, and conditions for success. And this structure, which is a little different from the structure of the 2011 standards, was informed by research about common elements of effective professional learning, as well as what experienced professional learning leaders told us is useful to them in organizing their own approach to building understanding and managing change. Research also guided our decision to have an equity standard in each of those frames. Equity is still woven through the standards as it has been in previous versions, but in this version, there is an equity standard in each of the 3 frames. The equity practices standard addresses how to ensure that classroom practices reach each student. The equity drivers standard focuses on how to make professional learning itself more equitable. And the equity foundation standard addresses how systems must set expectations and provide supports so that professional learning leads to equitable outcomes for educators and students. The curriculum assessment and instruction standard is also new, and this reflects research over the last decade about the promise of professional learning combined with and focused on high quality curriculum and instructional materials. And one more new standard is a standard called professional expertise, which highlights that the content of educator learning includes knowledge and skills related to that educator's own relevant standards, as well as other expertise specific to their role. So, all that said, we are here today to talk about how standards are grounded in evidence. We've made a concerted effort over the last 2 years to build a broad, updated research base for standards and to incorporate expertise and insights from the field. This solid research base, of course, includes classic studies and evidence. As we know, there's a long history of high quality professional learning research, but we'll focus today more on what's new in the past 10 years, as well as our process for making sure we were up to date. So we started with an investigation by WestEd, who conducted a scan, focus groups, and interviews to hear about successes, challenges, and recommendations from people who had adopted the standards and implementers of the 2011 standards. This included state policymakers, district leaders, and some of our affiliate leaders. We then surveyed our members and talked with our affiliate leaders about what emerging issues they would like to see represented in the revised standards, what studies and literature they felt were relevant to the revision, and what tools and supports they had found most useful in working with the standards. We did a survey. We also did several focus groups. We also just asked for input from affiliate leaders and those who had experience with the standards, and they were willing to share their expertise as well as many references and suggestions for things we should read along the way. We talked with our organizational partners about these issues as well. And then we enlisted the expertise of AIR to examine the research related to the 2011 standards, the emerging areas in the research that that I just described. We heard about from members, affiliates, and organizational partners. And then they also looked at the developing standards, the developing 2022 standards. And I'm really excited that Rachel Garrett is here to share all about that AIR work shortly. The research base and the revision itself also benefited a great deal from the engagement of our Standards Advisory Council, including our two panelists who you'll hear from today. As you'll see on these slides, the advisory group brought a vast amount of knowledge about the field, about the research, and talked with us a lot about how to ensure that the standards were an effective lever to improve professional learning systems. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank our research working group, chaired by Carol Campbell and Maria Heiler. This was a small, but as you can see, brilliant team who worked with us, challenged us, offered us studies and ideas for us to consider as we were revising the standards. And of course, you'll recognize these names and recognize that they have, in fact, conducted and written many of the studies and position papers that we read as we were revising the standards. So there's a new paper, brand new paper on our website that provides an overview of how the research has evolved since the 2011 standards. It also points readers to selected studies that we found particularly interesting and useful in revising the standards. There's a whole list of studies at the end, as well as links to studies and commentaries. There's also some suggestions and ideas about topics in professional learning that are still in need of additional study and that are on Learning Forward's research agenda for the next 3 to 5 years. And then I'll just say a few words about how research informs some of the supports and tools that we have released at the same time as the standards. Research about change management and adult learning really informed the development of all of the resources and tools. And we're excited, that on the website now, there's a whole array of supports so that you can immediately start looking at how to implement the standards. On the standards website, you'll also see that there are action guides for 7 roles: superintendent, system central office, principal, teacher, coach, external partner, and state commissioner. These are free 8-page PDFs that provide a short overview and highlight the key responsibilities for educators in those roles. Each action guide also includes a specific set of questions to help educators identify their first actions in standards use. And we hope that they are used to encourage and support collaboration and collective inquiry. And then for 4 of those roles, for system, central office leader, principal, coach, and external partner, there are also full innovation configuration maps, which are used to support and manage change by providing a detailed progression of specific behaviors. These are really an amazing resource developed by Michelle Mills-Miles and Joellen Killian over the past year or so. And they really help educators guide action and measure implementation. They also map to each other across all the roles to really underscore the importance of looking at change through a system lens. And these you can find on our website under the Action Guide tab. All right, that was a lot. But we're excited, as I hope you can tell, about all the resources and our interactive website where you can explore all of these resources. But we are equally excited about this fabulous panel that you're about to hear from. First, we'll hear from Rachel Garrett, the principal researcher at the Center for Great Teachers and Leaders at the American Institutes for Research. We'll also hear from Brian Goodwin, the president and CEO of McCrell International, and as I said, a member of our Standards Advisory Council. And then we'll hear from Sho Cravens, Associate Dean for International Students and Affairs and Professor of the Practice at Vanderbilt's Peabody College. We'll have each panelist address a guiding question about what new research they're excited about in the standards. Rachel will also share quite a bit about some exciting new research that's come out of AIR, and then we'll have a chance to talk as a panel at the end of each presentation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rachel, our wonderful partner over the past 2 years.
Great. Thanks so much, Elizabeth. And thank you so much for the opportunity to share about this information today. Elizabeth did ask if I could give just a little bit of sort of background to sort of explain what preceded this particular meta-analysis study that I'm about to speak about. So just by way of introduction, I am a researcher at AIR. I have had the opportunity to engage in a series of research studies, primarily evaluation studies about professional learning. going all the way from sort of newly developed professional learning programs that were being developed from the ground up and piloted, all the way through programs that are fully formed and are being implemented at large scale. And through that work, there was a team of us that really became interested in answering a more sort of fundamental question and decided to conduct an initial meta-analysis on teacher professional learning to really sort of understand how responsive classroom practice is through professional learning. And the upshot that we found through that first meta-analysis is that classroom practice does seem to respond. That when we ask teachers to develop their practice in specific ways, we find evidence through rigorous research that they are able to do so. So that was really exciting, and I think it was a really great sort of launching point for us to be able to engage with Learning Forward when they reached out to us about partnering to provide more research in support of the revisions of the standards that they were engaging in. I do want to make sure it's clear that, as you all saw in the video, Learning Forward engaged with a very broad number of advisors and different types of stakeholders to receive input. And what we talked about was that in AIR, our work was really focusing on a specific part of research that's based on randomized field trials, with the idea that the particular benefit of this type of research is being able to identify those causal relationships between professional learning and the teacher and student outcomes that that are being studied. So with that, we first engaged in a literature review to be able to basically sort of see how much research is out there. As Elizabeth said, we were trying to see, since the 2011 standard setting, what was the new research that was out there and how much could we find? And we did that initial literature search to sort of see what are the studies out there and to what extent do we see evidence of the 2011 standards? And of course, as Elizabeth had mentioned, those areas for deeper exploration that had come up through their discussions with different stakeholders. And that was good for sort of answering the question of, well, this is how much research seems to be out there. The answer was there was a fair amount. And so knowing that we had that amount of research available to analyze, we decided to engage in a meta-analysis, which really lets you take all the sort of the different findings across the different studies and synthesize them together to look holistically at how evidence of the standards or the different things that you're coding for are associated with the outcomes that are being studied. And that led us to 3 specific research questions that you see in front of you right now. So we were looking in particular for evidence of how the programs that contained elements that were aligned to the 2011 standards or the areas for deeper exploration were associated with the effects that we were observing in these studies on teacher instruction and also in student learning. So that was sort of the first part of the work that we engaged in because, of course, the 2022 standards were being developed. And so then our next step after that, once we had those definitions of the 2022 standards, we used those to go back and review the studies again to code for where there was alignment with the 2022 standards in the research studies. So those were, sort of the primary goals of what we were interested in looking at to inform the specific revisions of the standards. We also, however, were interested in even a more fundamental question, which is this third question that you see here about what the evidence really indicates about the ways in which changes in instruction mediate or help bring about the subsequent changes in student learning. Sort of underlying all professional learning is this idea that if you are able to change instruction in certain ways, then that in turn will bring about the changes in student learning that you're looking for. But this was an opportunity to really use this rigorous research to synthesize across the different findings and be able to see empirically what support we found for that theoretical model. So if we move on, here's just a little bit to sort of summarize the process that we used. We did focus on research that was the most recent research at the time, so from 2010 to 2020, we did need the research to be published in English, although we did not confine it to only conducted in the United States. We focused on grades K to 12. The research had to have an intervention that had a teacher professional learning component with the goal of improving student instruction. And we also required that they used a random assignment design. And once we had sort of the pool of studies, which was much larger, we then went through a screening process and narrowed down further. And in particular, for this study, we required that there was an observation-based measure of instruction to be able to study the impact of the professional learning that was being tested. So that definitely narrowed the pool of studies that we were able to include. And we also, where possible, looked for a measure of student achievement in one of the 4 core content areas. And so what you'll see is that narrowed our pool to what ended up being 48 studies. Some of the studies had more than one intervention that they were testing, so it was a total of 52 interventions. And with those studies, what we then did is we very carefully read the descriptions of the professional learning programs that were being tested. And we basically coded where there were indications of alignment with the 2011 standards, with these areas for deeper exploration that we were examining, and eventually with the 2022 standards as well. And then we used that information on where there was evidence of alignment with the standards to then associate with the average effects that we were also coding and extracting from the studies, effects on classroom instruction, and of course on student achievement as well. So what we found essentially was that for the 2011 standards, each of the standards was associated with a significant and positive effect on both instruction and student achievement. There was a range of effect sizes, but they were all significantly greater than 0. To say this was a happy finding. We were hoping to see things like this, but of course we went in as hard-headed empiricists, and so we really let the data speak for what they were. We also looked at several of those areas for deeper exploration, which included things like content expertise, equity, socio-emotional learning, and generally we did find that they were associated with significant and positive effects, but many of them require caution because there were fewer studies that really sort of aligned with those categories, and so we had to be careful about how we interpreted those relationships. So we were very excited to then code the 2022 standards, and we similarly found that they were positively associated with both instruction outcomes and student achievement. Again, there was a range of effect sizes. They were all statistically significant and greater than 0, except for one, which was the new leadership standard. We have to be very cautious about that, though. There was only one study that aligned with a leadership standard. And also Learning Forward has thought about this further, and you can read in their own publication their additional thoughts on this. And in addition to the findings that we have, part of what you discover through this process is where you need further research. Leadership is certainly one area where that would be the case. And of course, another thing is, as I said earlier, we were really focusing specifically on randomized field trials, but there's limitations to what you can learn from those. And in particular, this research really helps sort of elucidate where there would be some real benefits from qualitative research, such as case studies, to be able to study things that aren't as well captured in randomized field studies, such as looking at the conditions or the context that really support strong implementation and high quality professional learning. So all of this is perhaps best viewed in the report itself, which is available. But this is a graph that basically summarizes the average effects that we found associating the 2022 standards with teacher instruction. And the way that you can read them is there's 3 sort of sections that you see in the graph aligned to the 3 frames of the 2022 standards. And each of the bars with within them represent a specific standard. The sort of triangle that you see in the middle, that reflects the average effect size that we found associated with a given standard, and it is proportional to the size of the effect size. So for example, you can see under the conditions for success, culture of collaborative inquiry, there was an average effect size of 0.79 standard deviations. So all of these effect sizes were pretty large. Other than leadership, which was not significant, among the ones that were significant, they ranged from about 0.42 to almost a full standard deviation, indicating, basically a very large magnitude in the nature of this association. If we continue on and we look at student achievement, you can see that the relationships are much smaller here. That is probably as we would expect, because you're going that much further away from the professional learning to the teachers to then the students. And also we know that for the kind of achievement measures that we're looking at, it's really hard in research to get really large effects. So the kind of effects that we're seeing here that are ranging sort of more from about 0.05 to I think our largest is 0.21. They're sort of in the moderate, but probably still substantively meaningful range. And what you can see again is that almost all of the standards were significantly, had a significant positive association with student achievement across the different frames. So this is one of the graphs that we included in the report, which again, it might help to look at more closely, but this is basically an evidence gap map, which helps us sort of identify areas in which there are opportunities to conduct even more research. So the numbers within each of the circles represents a standard, and the numbers within them and also the size of the circle is proportional to the number of studies that had evidence that was aligned to a given standard. And the color is also sort of a heat mapping that reflects the average effect size that we found for that standard. And what you can see is that there are more studies that, for example, are relevant to professional expertise, and that have evidence for how that professional expertise standard is associated with student learning. We have very few when it comes to leadership or equity drivers, in contrast. So last, as I mentioned earlier, we really did also want to use this as an opportunity to test the underlying theory of action for how professional learning can improve instruction and through that student achievement. So we conducted a meta-mediation analysis, which is actually a very sort of cutting edge approach. There isn't a lot of precedence for how to conduct this kind of analysis, but we borrowed from what is existing out there and developed this method. And there are sort of two key points that we found through this. First, we did find that improvements in instruction were positively and significantly associated with subsequent improvements in student achievement. And we also found that improvements in student achievement were explained through the improvements in teacher instruction that came from professional learning. So that basically confirmed the underlying theory of action that when you have professional learning that helps teachers to develop their instruction, that there are then in turn improvements in student achievement. So I think that is where I will pause for now and turn it back to Elizabeth.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, this is exciting. I mean, as you said, we went into this not quite knowing what the results would be, and we are so pleased with what AIR has done and what the findings indicate. And it's nice to have that mediation analysis support what professional learning leaders in the field know in their bones, but it's nice to see it borne out in the research like this. You mentioned that there's a need to balance the RCTs with qualitative studies and case studies. And it's a perfect lead in to our next panelist because Brian Goodwin has, I think, decades of experience in researching professional learning programs internationally, and also focusing on how that research can be made useful and uh, available to practitioners. So we're thrilled to turn to Brian next.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. It's really great to be here. And I have to say, I'm also humbled to be on a panel with Sho and Rachel because they are both luminaries in this field. I've cited their work numerous times, so I'm a little starstruck actually being on this panel. But yeah, I thought I would share as a leader of an organization that really focuses on translating research into application, what things I find the most exciting about in these standards and in the evidence base for them. And the first one that really comes to mind is this idea of creating a culture of collaborative inquiry. In fact, we often find when we work with school systems, this is kind of like a key paradigm shift for them sometimes. When they begin to think about or maybe understand that the key to implementation is actually inquiry, getting people to work together to solve their shared problems of practice. It's almost really what it is. It's trying to create the same conditions for teachers that we want them creating for students. So, the idea of like becoming curious, asking questions, engaging in deep learning. And as you saw from what Rachel shared, collaborative inquiry has a high effect size. There's a smaller amount of studies here, but also quite a bit of variance. And I think that says we want to make sure that not all collaboration is created equal. We want to make sure we get the right elements in place to do that. And some of the things that we've seen when districts really make this shift, it's they start with a problem of practice. They look at their data and they think usually that problem of practice is framed as sort of a how do we or how do I question for teachers. So maybe it's like, how do we achieve better outcomes for all learners? Maybe the starting point, maybe as they dig deeper, they might come to something like a more focused problem of practice, like how do we engage all of our learners in high level questions in the classroom or something like that. But it's really beginning with where teachers are. What's their problem? What is it that they see as their biggest opportunity for improvement? And then you dig more deeply into evidence-based findings, best practices, and start to identify just really one or two things that you can do better over a fairly short period of time, maybe 3 to 6 weeks. The other thing that's really powerful is providing teachers with non-evaluative rubrics, or maybe actually engaging teachers in creating their own. You're going to see some innovation configuration maps coming from Learning Forward. And that is a process where maybe, let's take this example of teachers are trying to get better at their questions that they're asking in classrooms. They might come together to say, okay, well, what's the bare minimum that we need to do to have better questions in the classroom? They might say, well, maybe we should be asking questions, right? But then they might say, well, actually more than that, they should be high level. They should be interrogating kids or getting them to explain their thinking. We ought to have wait time. Maybe they're thinking, or we want to make sure it's wait time 1 and 2, that we get other kids involved. And maybe eventually they start to create kind of like, what does the gold standard look like? Maybe it's kids asking their own questions, but the idea here is that teachers come up with their own kind of pathway or rubrics for what it looks like to get better and better in this practice. And then they can coach one another. And I think one of the things that we've seen that can be really effective is peer coaching. But if you've looked at the research on this, you'll see that peer coaching can also be effective or ineffective. And one of the things that helps make it more effective are these rubrics, but also this idea maybe of like a coaching triad. So it's 3 teachers that come together. We observe each other's classrooms. One person one day is the coach, the other person is the coachee. The third person might facilitate. The next time we rotate, so a different person is the coach and the coachee. That's one model that we've seen that can be very effective in really encouraging deeper learning and application. So not just taking what we learned in professional learning, but saying, what does it look like in my classroom with my kids? And as I mentioned, I think the short cycle is so important too, that it's not trying to become amazing, but what can we do in a short period of time, 3 to 6 weeks, that get us better? And it does 2 things. I think one is it shrinks the challenge, right? It makes it something we can actually do. But it also starts to build that individual and collective efficacy, because what you're trying to do all through this process is collect data. And you might start to realize, I've got more kids talking in class now for using questions as an example, right? Or I'm really getting some of the kids that I thought didn't have ideas. If I wait, I've realized that they want to contribute to the conversation. So it's just kind of a quick overview of like that. culture of collaborative inquiry that I wanted to highlight, because that was one of those really, I think, exciting things that's coming out of the new research and that's reflected in the new standards. That was one idea I wanted to share with the group. I don't know if you want me to pause there, Elizabeth, or I've got plenty of other things I'm excited to share too. So.
This is so hard because I would love to hear everything you have to say, because I think the whole panel here is worthy of being starstruck. But let's go to show next, but then we'll come back and have a chance to explore more of your ideas after show. But I just want to say, Brian, I love the idea that you're focused on sort of the application of the research and what does it mean for educators in the field and what does it look like? And then I love this idea that you talk about all the time about sort of testing those ideas in short cycles and understanding what if change is really improvement and what does that mean for what we do next. So I love the way you're bringing all that to life, all that work, all that content in the standards to life. So thank you so much. All right, and then let's turn to show and then we'll come back all together.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And I am just as honored to be on the same panel with Brian and Rachel. And I am so glad also for Brian to talk about his excitement about having collaborative inquiry as one of the key elements. It's a condition right now in the frame for the condition for the standards. And I'm also excited about connecting collaborative inquiry with equity. And the reason I say that, it's because when you think about, when OECD defines access, quality, equity, and efficiency, the definition for equity is when you actually have a weak correlation between students' socioeconomic backgrounds and their achievements. And so that's an association. SES status doesn't really cause, different levels of achievement, but the reason is because it's actually more connected with schooling, the decisions we make, the practices that we have, and especially related to this inequitable distribution of quality teaching. And so the variation in teaching quality is really the reason that's one of the main reasons leading to the huge variation and inequity in how our students actually learn. And so what hearing from the excellent report by AAR and Rachel presented, what have we learned in the past decades? There's definitely several really major advancements the field has made in terms of thinking about leadership, not only in principal leadership, but also teacher leadership in instruction. There's definitely more research and good research on what kind of teaching practices or leadership practices actually lead to tangible, measurable, evidence-based outcomes. And then also, I think if you think about accountability at the state level, at the district level, more and more of such practices are actually now incorporated into how performance for principals or teachers are measured. And so they become part of the standards for evaluations. And then third, that you would also see better research connecting, as Rachel mentioned, connecting these kind of interventions, helping people professionally develop with the measurable outcomes and causal studies. We still have a long way to go, but these are kind of the progresses we have been able to make. The hard part, I think, for practice to connect with research is how do we then take that first move? And which is really what I love about the revised standards, providing lots of resources and really help people to make that first move. What Brian talked about are great examples of these kind of first moves that you can take and collaborative inquiry. And then he added the word cycle. It is exactly why when you have these iterative cycles, then you will actually turn the collaborative inquiry into from a noun to a verb to a way of thinking, way of doing. And so it's basically when we think about international models where they have, good mechanisms, so that can actually be used to address any of the issues, but especially related to equity. When you think about a few things, a few levels of equity. When I think about it, part of that is, as defined by our standards, is how teachers actually do their work in their classrooms, and it's their knowledge levels and how they group, how they ask questions to be very inclusive, be connected with the students' backgrounds. But I like to take that to the next level, is that when teachers have different levels of expertise, which is part of the standards, adding the word expertise, that level of expertise, be it content expertise or ability to actually teach in an equitable way, inclusive way, that needs to also be equitably distributed or shared, work together. So Brian talked about, using peers, coaches. That connects with the literature, is that it's job embedded, teacher led or peer led type of professional development that's more in service. So the expertise is constantly built, accumulated, that's actually visible to to others, and also validated for improvement. Those are the principles of having a professional knowledge base. That makes it actually a lot more equitable, because then you would have constantly the access by everyone who need to actually improve. And so I think that's really exciting. Now we have that connection between collaborative inquiry as a way of thinking and doing, with the goal, our overarching objective, to have a not only high quality but also highly equitable educational practice. I'll stop there. And the last thing I want to say is using look at the conceptual framing and the causal chain that mapped out by Rachel. We have a 2022 publication on the work that we did, learning from lesson study, and the teacher studying group in Shanghai. So these are OECD high performing systems, and try to have that customized in public schools in Tennessee. And so that work was done, in the last 5 to 8 years. But then our most recent study was using propensity score matching, which is, not as good as random assignment, because it's very hard to do the random assignment when you're in an educational setting, but also very rigorously done. The problem with RCT is that it has strong internal validity, but a lot harder to be, having the external validity to generalize in a very different setting. So improvement science as a alternative model or additional way of thinking about it actually employs collaborative inquiry to see, if you have a model somewhere else that's actually proven in a controlled setting that works, how does it actually work the best to be implemented, adopted in a very different setting, different culture, different backgrounds, different people? Then the only way it works is actually using collaborative inquiry, using cycles to have multiple trials, and constantly identifying the necessary conditions to be able to actually for that to take root, to be internalized by teachers who are involved or principals who are involved. And that's, I think, what the standards could definitely take us and guide us through in the next decade.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sho. I love, first of all, I appreciate you connecting equity and professional expertise and the culture of collaborative inquiry standards the way you just did. I think it's, as I said in the beginning, it's critical that these standards are understood and sort of taken on together. And you've just given us a wonderful example of how that works. And thank you for highlighting the study, the Shanghai, Tennessee study, because I think, I think that's such an important thing to highlight, because I think sometimes this idea of improvement science or cycles of inquiry can feel very theoretical, and the way that your study sort of grounded and tested and illustrated how that can be how that can happen in different contexts is really important. It's actually something we should probably highlight on our website now that I think of it. So thank you for that. I'd love to go back to Brian for a minute. Brian, I know you had some other ideas that you wanted to share about leadership and potentially the work you've done in Melbourne as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, in fact, we saw a lot of this as a show is pointing out, the idea of improvement science and inquiry cycles. We had the opportunity years back to intersect with something that was happening in Melbourne, Australia, Northern Melbourne Regional District. And what they had done, they were, it was a district that was had kind of flatlined, I guess, in terms of performance, and they were trying to figure out, how do we reboot what's happening here? And so they decided to focus on three things: literacy, numeracy, and curiosity. But what they did then, and they identified what are the six, like they found by observing bright spots among teachers, what are the things that teachers do when kids are engaged and they're curious and they're learning well. And from that, then they identified six kind of theories of action. And then instead of doing the usual, everyone come down to the gym and we're going to do a PD on those things, they instead created these non-evaluative rubrics around these six, they call them theories of action, because it gets at what also Show was pointing out, the idea of teacher expertise. We want teachers to be able to understand why they're doing what they're doing, to have mental models about, okay, when I do this, then this should happen. And so one example was quality questions, where they created those rubrics. They would engage teachers in working together. In some cases, each triad would decide which of these six practices they were going to engage in. So it gave the teacher some empowerment, some autonomy, just like we want for kids. In some cases, maybe the school or grade level team would decide we're all going to work on something together. But what started to happen is, once maybe they got their high level questions better, then they would realize there's something else that's missing. Okay, we got better questions, but we're still not engaging kids in challenging learning tasks, which was another one. So then so the teachers really became self-directed. And it was all about actually getting more inquiry-based learning in the classroom. And so it made sense to engage teachers in their own inquiry-based learning to do that. So I think, this idea of really shifting to rapid cycle improvement, reflecting on the data, is really powerful, way more powerful than I think the what has been traditional PD. Come on down to the gym, and the guy that was leading the effort in Melbourne would say it felt like what we used to do is like try to bring teachers to the gym and inoculate them against bad practice, and then hoping they'd go out. This is before COVID even. He had that metaphor. So that's why I am really excited about this whole idea of using improvement science, but it doesn't have to be, as Sho said, this kind of esoteric idea. It can be very practical. It's what good companies do, right? You take a product, you improve on it, and you keep getting better. So it's what sports teams do, right? You try something, and you get better. So I'll stop there for a moment and invite questions too.
No, that's great. You're reminding me of my, I asked my daughter if she wanted the job for the summer of mowing the lawn. And she said, theoretically, I do, but I don't know how it's actually going to happen. And I think what you're illustrating today is, sometimes these theories can feel, as you say, esoteric, but the way you're describing them and sort of grounding them in practice is really helpful. And I hope that some of the support and the resources and the tools that we've released with the standards help do that as well. Sho, did you want to add something in response to Brian? I saw you.
No, I agree so much. I think it's both. You always have to have expertise, and expertise does exist within your practice and collectively. But at some point, you probably max out of the internal expertise, and then you will need external expertise to come in and then take to the next level. The thing I want to add is that the good systems we've seen is that this kind of a collaborative inquiry doesn't happen just at one level. It happens, it's more systemic. It happens at multiple levels because education is very hierarchical. You're nested in, so classrooms are nested in schools, schools are nested in districts. And so you would actually see this collaborative inquiry happening at all the levels. And then eventually you would have this system that's with bottom up identified initiatives or needs, and then you have top-down support. But it's all kind of having this mechanism that connects multiple levels through very actually quite scientific. If you think about how collaborative inquiry, when it's disciplined, when you actually have specific objectives identified, that requires also, in the United States, of course, now states have good observational rubrics for instructions, but also value-added student results. And so all those things have to come together. And I do think we have lots of the right ingredients. And so it's exciting to pull that together, and having a set of professional learning standards that see all of these key elements would be very, very important.
Nice. Thank you. We are approaching the top of the hour. I can't believe it. It flew by. But in our last couple of minutes, I'd love, and Rachel, I'll just warn you, I'm going to start with you. I would love if you could all share sort of what, you've talked about Brian, you talked about curiosity, and Rachel, you talked about the evidence maps, and Sho, I know that you are a professor sort of looking at the future of the field in front of you every day. And I would love to hear from each of you what you're excited about that might be emerging in terms of research, or what you would point to as a great need for study and professional learning. Like, what's next on the horizon?
Sure. It's a great question. Well, I mean, I would say one thing that I think is incredibly important for us to understand, and I hope we can engage in research around, is how professional learning can sort of support teachers in terms of their professional satisfaction, and how it can relate to things like retaining them in their positions, helping them feel the sort of efficacy and the aspirations for professional growth, especially as we are at a point in the field where there's a potential huge wave of oncoming retirement. There's been a lot of turnover and pandemic fatigue. I think that professional learning is going to be a really key mechanism to help us be able to retain and support the educators we have, and also to help us with growing our pipeline. And so that's an area I'd really be excited to see more research in.
Great. Thank you. Sho or Brian?
Brian, you first.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention I'm excited about also the references to science of learning in the new standards, which is really powerful. And we do work with teachers, and I had an experience where we were doing some work with some teachers on the science of learning, helping them think about information processing model, all that stuff, which actually doesn't have to sound as esoteric as I just made it sound there. But the idea of, like, if we're going to learn something, we have to become interested in it. We have to commit to it, as have a goal. We have to focus on it, and so forth. But as we were doing that workshop, we had some professional developers from the school district in the back of the room, and it dawned on them, like, we should be doing the same thing for teachers, right? We should be thinking about the science of learning and how our brains work. John Medina he has a great quote, something along the lines of, like, if you wanted to create something that's directly opposite of how the brain works, you create something like a classroom. We could probably say the same thing of a lot of traditional PD. It's just not how our brains work. But we are natural born learners and curious. And so I think this idea of, like, really thinking about how do we design learning experiences for teachers that actually reflect how their brains work, starting with getting them curious, making it, I think every teacher got into the profession because they were learners. So how do we keep that going for them? So I could go on all day, but I won't. I'll let Sho talk some.
Yeah, I love both the topics mentioned by Rachel and Brian. I've been thinking about this too. I know John Bransford's work, How People Learn, was definitely cited in the literature, and Brian talked about the problem of practice and how important it is with that focus, and you bring people come together. I just it's still very hard to see any of the interventions that we, even with the best science and best design, sometimes would actually stick in the schools that we work with. And even harder now, as Rachel mentioned. There's the wave of retirement, and then the workforce is really, there's all kinds of changes happening. So that's an area I would love to really kind of spend more time thinking about, not just in K-12. Since I work in higher ed, I see that also on the topic of equity and top of supporting students who really, coming in from diverse background and in need of, really good support. And what is the best support, and how do we actually, regardless of political rhetoric, and put the problem of practice in front of all of us and work on that, having this knowledge base that is actually sustainable, that doesn't matter who's coming and going, that we're constantly building onto it. And that, I think that's a really, it's a big challenge, but it's also inspiring that if we can actually be a part of it.
That's a great final statement. I mean, that's just wonderful and inspirational, and a great way for us to wrap up our conversation today. I just want to thank you all for being part of the panel today, but really being part of the work over the past couple of years. It's been such a wonderful experience to be able to talk with you about, the ideas and the standards and everything else, and everything else that Learning Forward is excited about in the research and what's on the horizon. We all have really appreciated getting a chance to get to know you and work with you over the past couple of years. And I can officially say that we are not letting any of you off the hook, that we are, really excited about the future for Learning Forward, engaging in some of this research work with all of you. So thank you very much. Thanks to everyone who watched, and have a nice weekend. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.